Hey everybody, today I want to go ahead and take a brief look at a few different Minecraft tree designs that I've been able to come up with here. A lot of these you guys will recognize from my single player survival series. A lot of them I've been using there, and other ones are just ones that I've kind of come up with myself as I've been working throughout the world and thought you guys might find interesting here. A lot of them are just simple tree designs, or I've tried to actually go ahead and recreate every single type of Minecraft tree that exists in the game, as well as adding in a few of my other ones, and I've been really trying to play with the idea of using some stripped logs in here as well. So hopefully you guys do enjoy these. We got a bunch of different designs on here. Let me know down below what other types of design type things you guys want to be seeing going forward. And if you like this one, please do hit the like button, as it means a heck of a lot to me. I know, sorry to be asking for that right away, but anyways, we got a lot of great ones in here. And with that, let's go ahead and take a look at them. All right, to start off here, we got our spruce tree. I really love this guy. I've used this a bunch throughout my own survival world. It's super easy, it's super survival friendly, and very actually quick to make. Basically what we do here on the inside is just stack up a trunk here. We're using a lot of spruce fences as well as the spruce leaves themselves, and just kind of stacking it up so it comes up to a general point here in the center. I think this one's awesome because we get a lot of depth in here with these little missing blocks here and throughout, but also it's just super simple. It's basically just a circle that comes up and up to one single point in the center. You can kind of see a little bit of a plush shape there with all of it, and overall it's just super easy to build. It was a pretty quick one. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I think overall I started using this one when just before 1.13 came out, so it was the first tree I messed with in bringing in these full wood blocks instead of just the log blocks, and I realized that you can actually go ahead and combine the log blocks and the wood blocks together to actually get a pretty interesting effect on them. Moving over to our next tree, we got the big ol' oak tree. I've used a few different varieties of this one, mixing and matching it up every single time throughout that I create it, and I think now that I'm looking at it, I actually want to go and thicken that up a little bit more throughout there. Basically what I like doing with this one is taking a lot of different logs and turning them in and out in just different directions to give a lot of detail as the tree structure goes up. And then at the top of it, it'll be a little hard to see in here, but you can see a lot of oak fences and things like that stretching out all over the place to give it a little bit more depth up there as well. One thing that I really try and pay attention to with these ones is making sure that when I look up, I can see the sky through the leaves. Because if you're walking around in trees IRL, I know who does that, but you're always going to be able to see the sky almost every single time unless it's a super thick canopy. So I try and echo that in my own Minecraft trees. I don't like stacking up the leaves so that they're like 6 blocks, 5, 7 blocks deep or something like that, which we see on the normal Minecraft trees. So I like to go ahead and do this and mix them up here a little bit more. Now this one, I would consider it a cross between a birch tree, a dark oak tree, and a sort of a willow tree here. I went ahead and brought this one in here. I had the inspiration for this from the dark oak trees. I tried using that super thick base that our Minecraft dark oak trees come up with in here, but I want to bring in the birch trees and also add in that super thick canopy like we were talking about with it, and I think it works really well. I could see this in a very densely populated forest, a lot of little bits hanging down, kind of like the weeping willow type leaves I mentioned, where they just come straight down, just all the way down to the base, and I really think that's pretty awesome for what we're able to get out of it. It adds a lot of depth to it. You can see just different ways of our birch wood coming up in here, and I think for once the birch wood actually looks pretty good in this way. We're using dark oak leaves down here along the base to help mix things up a little bit more. Added a few mushrooms in just to give it a little bit more of an environment to it. This guy over here is my take on a cypress tree. I went ahead and used the stripped spruce logs as well as spruce leaves, and you can kind of just pile these up going all the way throughout. I like the idea of leaving some spots where you can actually see that stripped log itself so that it still looks kind of tree-ish and just not a blob of leaves throughout. If you look at it from the corner angles, it has a kind of a rounded curve to it going throughout. If you look straight on it, it appears very boxy, but I think as you look around, it appears much more natural throughout, which I really like of this one. Next up is a little apple tree. This one's a little bit harder to make out as an apple tree if we didn't have these guys sitting around here, but I thought this was a pretty cool design that we could come up with here. We're using the dark oak wood here with our oak leaves and then throwing in some spruce fences to give a little bit more variety and color. I looked at pictures of apple trees online, and apple trees that would be in like a plantation or an orchard or something like that. I guess they'd all be in orchards, but they weren't very tall. Most of them were pretty short so that workers could easily go up and grab the apples out of the tree and then put them in the bucket and move on. So I tried keeping the idea of something here fairly short and something simple that you could easily replicate in your own survival world without hating yourself after the 10th tree. Next one up here is our acacia trees. You can see that I tried to keep that very similar vibe that a lot of our acacia trees have over in Minecraft itself, where they come up and then they have a very flat bottom because you have those long tall animals like the giraffes would be like reaching up trying to get the leaves. So the leaves are trying to grow up taller and flatter so that the animals can't reach them and eat them too much. So I tried with this guy going ahead and adding 4 different areas where the branches kind of come out into their own section of a tree, more or less taking 4 different types of our basic in-game acacia tree and building them out throughout with this one central connecting trunk, I guess you would call it. And I think it looks pretty well. I think a lot of these just briefly, pretty scarcely scattered throughout a savanna area could actually look pretty good throughout. Maybe if we get those boab trees in here as well, these would all look super cool together. Next one up here, I call my skinny tree. It's kind of not really an aspen tree. It's not really a birch tree. I don't really know what you call them, but they're basically a tall, skinny tree that would be found up in the mountains. I use this one a lot in my survival world with our spruce tree way down over there, and it works really well together, just kind of smashing these in those open places where you have some other bigger trees, and then you can fill in the spots in between them with these guys. And overall, I really like the look of it. Same idea behind what we're talking about with the cypress tree, but on this one, we're using fences throughout the entire way so that it just fits a little bit better. Next up, we got our palm tree. This guy I really like. This one is a design that I came up with probably about 2 years ago now. And I like the idea of having a few vines drifting up off the bottom of it, so they're kind of hanging down. Then we got our cocoa beans up here symbolizing coconuts or something like that. Overall, I really like this one a lot. The main part of it is that you want to have the jungle wood arching up at an angle here throughout. And a tip for you guys is add in some string throughout the whole area so you can see it just briefly in here. Kind of hard to see, but it makes it so that the vines and everything can't grow throughout the entire area, which is really, really useful. Up here, we basically created a flat area like this, and we add a few blocks on top to mix it up. We add that corner one in there just to break that guy up. Then coming down on the sides, you basically just jump it out and drop down a few blocks to get that kind of palm leaf look, like they're hanging down a little bit more. You don't want these leaves sticking out too far to the side. You want them very, very nestled in with the tree itself and very, very high up off the ground. Next up, we got our willow tree. This one I had a lot of fun making. I never really made one before. This one was one of the more challenging ones for me. You can see I started to incorporate some vines in here as well. Just waiting for these guys to grow all the way down. We're using oak leaves in here, as well as using string, and well as using some stripped spruce wood to help bring in the whole area a little bit better. Then beyond that, up here we also have some oak fences, making a few smaller branches going throughout to help build up that canopy itself. This one is a pretty thin canopy on top, but the leaves are very consistent. They're very much covering the whole area. You basically want to think of when building willow trees as basically you like create the tree structure itself with the branches and everything. Then you take a towel and just throw it on the top of it, and wherever those things droop down onto the sides, turn that into leaves. And that's the idea that I took for here, and I think it turned out pretty well. One thing I would really recommend though is on some of the vine branches, big long willow leaves or whatever, you want to bring them back in a block so you add some extra depth to it, because if you're only bringing things out as you go out, it's going to look a little weird, and it's going to basically just look like a weird mound shape. So if you start bringing some of them in like this guy, you can actually get a lot of extra depth in there. It looks pretty good. Obviously these guys probably would look best next to some water, so they're out drooping over the water areas. Now, my custom version of a birch tree right here, I really like this one. It's pretty simple. You can see through the leaves. There's some little branches up there. We're using our birch fences as well as our birch wood here to kind of pile this guy up. I try to make it look like we're stretching out into 2 different directions, so the tree kind of split out at the top into a Y shape. Then basically just went for like a bowl cut style tree branch or leaf coverage on top of it with a few drooping down to the side, something that you could easily just sit under after a long day's work and just peer out over a big old valley or a bunch of fields around you. I feel like a few of these dotted in like the middle of a massive wheat field could look pretty dang good. And now for the custom dark oak tree. What I really wanted to embody in here is keeping that same really thick trunk base that we have in the dark oak trees in Minecraft itself, as well as keeping that very thick, very dense canopy up top that's hard to see through. You don't get to see a whole lot of information through what is in the sky. So this is the only one where I really say like, yeah, just pile up those leaves like crazy. What I really tried to do in here as well is bring in a lot of branches. I feel like dark oak trees would have a lot of branches and things like that, just bringing up all the leaves. So I brought in a few lower branches as well, so they're just kind of sticking around. And then the leaves here would die out because the canopy above them is so thick. So we want to leave a few of the branches without any leaf blocks around them. It'll actually work really well. Then to help come in here and add a little bit more coverage and density to everything going on, I wanted to go ahead and bring in some mushroom blocks and some dead coral fans in here to make it just feel so much more wet and so much more like there's a bunch of life coming down here that just survives and thrives on the wetness of everything down here. So we got a lot of mushrooms, all the different type of mushroom blocks on here, making it look like they're just growing all over the freaking place. This is probably one of my favorite trees on here, so hopefully you guys like that one. Coming up next, we got our custom version of the jungle tree in here. This one I tried basically bringing up from a somewhat thick trunk down here and splitting it off, going into two different directions, kind of echoing a little bit of what we had for the palm tree, but making it a little bit more hectic and maybe making it look like the branches go out even further to make a wider, thicker canopy. Because I feel like the jungle, similar to what like a dark oak forest would look like, should have a very thick canopy going across the top of it because everything's so wet in there. There's just so much life growing throughout the whole place. So I figured these guys could be in here as like bird nests or animal nests of some sort. So I went ahead and threw a few coral fans in there again. And we got a few vines that'll be dripping down, growing down all over this place eventually. They just haven't sat here long enough to actually grow. Then, of course, we got our oak leaf coverage down here at the base, which is looking pretty good. Overall, I like this guy a lot. There's a lot of different just shape and size to it, from underneath especially, that just looks very hectic. Like there's a lot going on to it. Then our last tree here, I have no idea what to call this guy, but I thought it would just be a pretty cool one to take on here. So I went ahead and threw a little bench in here using our custom texture with the brown bed. But regardless, it is using the stripped birch logs as well as using the acacia leaves. And it just is like a tiny little tree throughout here. I feel like most of the other guys I had were like 4 or 5 blocks at least until you got up to the lower part of the tree canopy. So I really wanted to go ahead and create one tree here at least that was really low to the ground, similar to what we did for the apple tree, I guess, where you could easily touch the leaves, and this one you could kind of lay underneath. Maybe you find these ones in a park inside of a city where the trees don't have a whole lot of room to grow for them. But overall, I thought it was a pretty cool design. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. There will be a world download down in the description below, so you can grab all of these trees and use them as you'd like, and also just kind of see how they're built. Yep, we are using a custom texture pack on here to make the leaf blocks just a little bit thicker because I think it looks a little bit more natural than what we get in Minecraft itself, or at least I prefer the look of it. I know some people are split between them, but anyways, let me know down in the comments below what you guys would like to be seeing as far as more series like this. I've been thinking about doing one for like custom rock designs, custom cliff designs, just different things that you can add to your terraforming skill set in your toolbox so you can create those amazing worlds yourselves. And just let me know down in the comments below what you guys want to be seeing as far as those things go. I really hope you guys do enjoy this one. Please hit that like button if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you are new, and I will catch you on the flip side.